All right, let's talk about something that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually happening right now, and it has some huge real-world consequences. The question is, can an AI actually know itself? Think about your own handwriting or the sound of your own voice. You can spot it in a second, right? You just know it's you. But what about a super smart AI? After it writes, a whole chunk of text, can it look back at it and go, oh yeah, that's me. I wrote that. That's the mystery we're diving into today. And look, this isn't just some late-night philosophical debate. This whole idea, or maybe the lack of this idea, is totally fundamental to whether we can actually build AI systems that are safe and that we can trust. So, the big idea here is what researchers call self-recognition. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. Can an AI tell when something is its own work? And you might be asking, okay, so what? Why does that even matter? Well, think about it. Without that, how do you get accountability, right? If an AI makes a mistake, a big one, but it can't even admit it wrote the thing, then who's on the hook? This is like the absolute bedrock of building trust. Okay, so how do you actually test this? Well, a team of researchers from the University of Chicago came up with a plan. They decided to put the best AIs out there through what is basically the ultimate identity test. They really wanted to find out once and for all if these things have any clue who they are. And we're not talking about some small-time experiment here. No, they got 10 of the heavy hitters. We're talking GPT, Claude, Gemini, the whole crew, and basically pitted them against each other in this massive challenge to see who could recognize themselves. So the test had two parts. The first one was super simple. They just showed an AI some text and asked, hey, did you write this? A straight up yes or no. Easy enough, right? But the second part, that was tougher. It was basically an AI police lineup. They'd show the model a piece of text and then a list of all 10 models and say, okay, pick the author out of this lineup. All right, so the stage is set, the tests are run, and the results, well, let's just say they were surprising, and not in a good way. So let's start with the easy one first, right? That simple yes or no question. How do you think they did? Okay, now this is where it gets really wild. Before we even look at their scores, think about this. Each AI only wrote 1/10 of the material. So a super simple strategy is to just always say no. If you do that, you'll be right 90% of the time. That's our baseline. But look at this. The AIs were worse than just guessing no every time. And get this, the more information they got, the longer the text was, the worse they did. How does that even make sense? All right, so they totally blew the easy test. You'd have to assume they did even worse on the harder one, the police lineup, right? Oh, yeah. Their accuracy was a pathetic 10.9%. Think about that. With 10 options, if you just close your eyes and point, you have a 10% chance of being right. So these multi-billion-dollar, super advanced AIs were basically just guessing randomly. It was a complete and total failure. And here's the kicker. Out of all 10 models in the test, only 4 of them, just 4, ever pointed to themselves as the author. And even when they did, they were almost always wrong. It's not just a blind spot. It's like a massive identity crisis. But this is where the story takes a really weird turn, because their wrong answers weren't just random guesses. When the researchers dug into who the AIs were blaming, a really strange pattern started to pop up. Yeah, instead of spreading the blame around, they all kept pointing their digital fingers at the same couple of cool kids in the AI world. It turned into this bizarre popularity contest. Get ready for this number. A mind-blowing 97.7% of the time, they guessed the author was either from the GPT family or the Claude family. That's it. Even if the text was written by, say, Gemini, the other AIs would look at it and go, oh, that's got to be GPT, or yeah, that has Claude written all over it. The researchers basically said, it seems like the AIs have this built-in social hierarchy. They've just learned to connect high-quality text with the most famous brands. It's almost like they have this weird imposter syndrome. They read a good piece of writing and think, wow, that's really good. There's no way I wrote that. It must have been GPT. Okay, so let's recap. We've got AIs that are awful at recognizing their own work, and on top of that, they're biased towards the popular kids. It's a wild finding for sure, but let's bring this back down to earth. Why does any of this actually matter? Well, the implications are actually huge. Let's start with accountability. If an AI creates something harmful, but it can't even own it, who's responsible? Then there's trust. How can we really trust a system that doesn't have a stable sense of what it is? And this bias thing, it totally messes up the whole idea of using AIs to evaluate each other, which is something that happens all the time. If they're just voting for the most famous model, those evaluations are worthless. All of this points to a really fundamental problem for AI safety. And just when you think you've got it figured out, here's the final twist. It's a total paradox. The researchers discovered that most of these models do know who they are, in a way. Like if you ask Gemini, "Who made you?" It'll say, "I'm a large language model, trained by Google." It knows its family name. But that abstract, factual knowledge is completely separate from its ability to recognize its own work. It's like it knows its own name, but it can't recognize its own voice in a recording. We actually get this little peek inside the machine's thought process here. In one case, a model was looking at text it actually wrote, and its reasoning for saying no was basically, well, I'm not totally sure, so it's safer to just say it's not me. Can you believe that? It would rather deny its own creation than risk making a mistake. It's like a machine with zero self-confidence. So, when you boil it all down, here's where we are. We are building these unbelievably powerful systems that can do incredible things, but they're missing this fundamental, stable sense of self. They can write a beautiful poem or a complex piece of code, but they can't look in the digital mirror and recognize themselves. And that leaves us with one heck of a question to think about. What does intelligence even mean if you don't know who you are?